guys, in this video we'll be looking at suicide, and please remember that we're still underneath the topic of social issues. Now, first we're going to ask, what is suicide? Right? What is suicide? Suicide is the act of killing oneself intentionally. And intentionally right there is a very, very strong word to use in there, right? So it's not the act of killing oneself, but the act of killing oneself intentionally. All right? I guess you guys get it right. Now, suicide is the 13th leading cause of death worldwide and is the third leading cause within the 15 to 34 age range. All right? Now, suicide and attempted suicide have direct social and medical implications and economic impacts for society and for individuals who survive. You might ask how, right? But I'll get into that later. But individuals can be at an increased risk, right, of suicide for a number of reasons, right? Now we're going to look at the reasons or the causes of suicide, right? Now, first one up, depression. That's a very important one. That one, I think we all know that one. Depression is one of the largest reasons. One of the reason why persons commit suicide. Now, anyway, we're going to move ahead. Now, persons who go through depression tend to lock themselves away from the world, right? Which most of the time has a negative impact on their thoughts, and therefore, if they think negative things towards themselves and others, then this will result in suicide, or most of the time result in suicide, because they're not talking to anyone. They are having negative thoughts, right? So this normally results in suicide. Now, second up is psychological disorder. Now, what is psychological disorder? It is really mental disorder, right? Now, most persons who die from suicide due to psychological disorder are normally persons with untreated depression, which escalates and then leads to suicide. So it's untreated depression which causes psychological disorder, right? Right. Now, moving on to the third one, drug abuse. Now, even without depression, drug addiction can cause suicide. Did you know that? I guess you guys didn't really know that. But in most cases, persons who commit suicide use drugs or some type of drugs to do so, whether through overdose or whether through overdose of the drug or as a stimulus to prep for suicide. Yes, people normally use drugs to prep for suicide, right? Now, last but not least, low tolerance of crisis. What do we mean by that? Low tolerance of crisis, right? Persons who has problems in their lives are sometimes not in control of their emotions, especially when problem piles up and turns into a crisis. Then they tend to have a very low tolerance level for problems, and therefore they see suicide as a way out, right? So that is what it really means. Now, young people can be particularly at risk as they adjust to challenges in their bodies during adolescence and work through the transition from childhood to adulthood. Suicide is a social issue because everyone has a role to play in suicide prevention, including government departments and agencies. non-government organizations and institutions, such as faith groups, friends and relations, and all those involved with children and young people, either professionally or voluntarily. Right? So these persons are very important. These organizations are very important if they could really help persons who are struggling with suicidal thoughts. Now, next we'll be looking at how suicide affects society. First up, we have less people to govern, right? Now, you might ask, how does this affect society? Yes, so I'm going to explain to you. If there is a decrease in the population due to suicide, then that means the country is at risk of being underpopulated, and therefore there will be no one to govern, or you could say less people to govern, right? No, that is how it affects society. Second up, and is also the last one, second up is decrease in potential production. Now, decrease in potential production is really the decrease in a country's population due to suicide can and will affect potential production. People who commit suicide could be a potential doctor, lawyer, teacher, or someone productive and worthwhile to the country, or to society, right? So that is where you have decrease in potential production, and that is how it affects society. These people could be potential people that really mean something to society, right? Now, okay guys, with that being said, suicide can be devastating to the families of these victims, and therefore cause a strain on society due to the fact that it may cause psychological damage to these families and can also put a burden on medical facilities. So, with that being said, if there's someone really struggling with suicide thoughts or suicidal thoughts, you could maybe talk to them based on what I've said. Sometimes I just need persons to talk to. But that's just my take on it. So, but that's it for suicide, guys. Alright? Okay, thank you guys for watching. That's the end of my video. I also want to thank everyone who subscribed and also shared my videos to help others. Good job. Right? Well, as for those who have not yet subscribed, I'm urging you to do so in order to know when I release a new video or something, right? Well, if my video was helpful in any way to you, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys.